The views and opinions expressed on this radio show may not be those of this radio station, its sponsors, or Securities America, and should not be construed as legal, tax, or investment advice. You should always consult the appropriate professional before making any financial decision. Securities America, as a firm, does not make a market in, conduct research on, or recommend the purchase or sale of any securities that may be discussed on this broadcast.
This is the Retirement Coach on 640 WGST. Call now with your questions. 404-367-WGST. 404-367-9478. Now, here's your host, Todd Hicks.
Good morning to you. Welcome to the Retirement Coach Show. I'm your host, Todd Hicks. If you're nearing retirement, or you may already be in retirement, you cannot afford to miss the show this morning, as we have a very special guest. We have Jeff Manry in the studio with us. And good morning, Jeff, and welcome to the Retirement Coach Show. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Todd. A pleasure to be here. Thanks for asking me.
Absolutely. It's Jeff is actually the first person that I have interviewed on the Retirement Coach Show. As you know, we're a fairly new show. This is actually our 12th week on the air. And I'm real excited to have Jeff with us here this morning. Jeff is the president and CEO of BetaVest Technologies, a company located in Gwinnett County. Jeff is actually a certified financial planner. He's been practicing advisor and asset manager for the past 28 years. He is the mastermind and creator of a software program for advisors that is very comprehensive and a valuable planning tool that helps manage the uncertainty of retirement planning. When we use the term retirement planning, we're really referring to income planning phase of your life. And you've heard me say that many, many times. When you're ready to use the income sources that you've funded over your working career, and we are going to be talking with Jeff. He is the creator, once again, of BetaVest Technologies. And this is a software program that is a valuable planning tool that helps manage the uncertainty of retirement planning. And, all right, Mr. Jeff, tell me a little bit of give me a little background of why you created such a software program.
Well, Todd, I've been in the what I call the other people's money business for 27 years. And that's not a responsibility that one should take lightly, because that's one thing you never forget. As an advisor, you're working with other people's money, not your own. And so the primary reason that I forced myself to do this was out of, I guess, complete and utter frustration. And what I mean by that is that there's a lot of money concepts, especially related with investment rate of return, that they just don't come out and hit you right square in the face, and they're very obscure. And there's one thing that I know from my experience is that very few people, and I'm going to have to include many people in our industry, who don't really comprehend investment rate of return. Now, let
me stop you right there. I had Randy Cook on the show with me a couple weeks ago, actually. Mr. Rob was on vacation. He basically asked me, is there anything in specific that you look for in a retirement planning advisor? And one of the things that I mentioned on that show, and I kind of wanted to play off of you with that, is, do you think it's a necessity to find someone that specializes in retirement planning versus just asset management?
Sometimes I wonder if people think they're specializing in retirement planning when technically what they're doing is managing assets, i.e. investment management in pursuit of investment rate of return. With that's a very broad goal, and I think that retirement planning goes way beyond that. Mm-hmm. Okay, and one thing I always ask, prospective clients, and I came at this from a wealth management company, and this system was developed within that wealth management company, so it's not something that was, just a brainchild of somebody outside of the industry who's never met with real live people that have these issues. I was forced into developing this software because I found it almost impossible to just sit around and talk about this stuff. I believe that people need to be engaged with the plan that not just you are developing for them, that they are having interaction with.
That's
and
really
that has
important.
to be a very interactive process.
Yeah, I think that's extremely, extremely important. And another thing that I've been noted for saying in the past, I don't think anybody should turn their money over to an asset manager and just let them run off and manage their money and come back and give them results. I've always encouraged clients to be very, very active in both their planning process for retirement, because it's obviously, if they don't own the plan, then it's not going to happen. And second of all, I think they need to be involved with every decision that's made and have that relationship with a retirement specialist.
Absolutely. And, I don't think we should ask our clients to have PhD level, knowledge concerning a lot of this stuff that in our industry and all that. Because number one, you have to have an interest to have a knowledge at that level. And quite frankly, there's a lot of things that I don't do because I don't have an interest in. And, but there's a lot of things that I would like to have, a base set of information about. So I don't feel personally as though I'm totally ignorant in regards to things that matter in my life.
Yep. I actually met you, Jeff, through my own practice, through Allegiance Retirement Solutions. And Jeff actually called on us to look at the BetaVest software. And I actually had known Jeff for some time. And I'd met him years ago when he actually started the process. And when he came into my office and began to sit down with me and show me what his software does for income planning, I was actually blown away. He asked about 4 questions, and they're very difficult questions. And when they were asked of me, I knew that there was a trick, not a trick, but there definitely was another answer behind them. Because most of us look at these questions that you asked me, and we won't cover those this morning necessarily. But I was really, really very well impressed about, for example, one thing that I found with your software is that a lot of people have a misunderstanding that if we have 3 different accounts, A, B, and C, and each one of those average 8%, and we're taking a distribution from that, does that necessarily mean that we're going to all have the same result at the end?
Absolutely not. And this is where I think, Wall Street, the investment media, Money Magazine, just anything that's just very traditional sources of financial data and information. Now, don't get me wrong. I think that there's good in those, but when it comes down to foundationally understanding how investments work, there's very little good information out there. And so when you ask, just say you have 3 portfolios, and let's say in advance you have a crystal ball, and you were given 2 pieces of information about 3 mutual funds, 3 portfolios, 3 stocks. It doesn't matter what it was. And you were given a crystal ball, and you could look into that, and you could say, okay, this investment A or whatever is going to average 10% over the next 10 years. And you could compare it to the other one, and they were all going to average 10%. You follow me?
Yep.
Well, when we come back, I think that we would really want to touch on something, because I think this is where people fall totally short of being able to understand how investments work. And,
yep.
and they're very disgusted about it, okay?
Absolutely. It's 29 minutes after the hour. You are listening to the Retirement Coach Show. I am your host, Todd Hicks. We're pleasure to have you here. We're going to break for 1 second. We'll be back in just a few moments. 640 WGST.
Now, more of the Retirement Coach on 640 WGST Atlanta. Talk Radio.
It's just before 26 before the hour. You are listening to the Retirement Coach Show. This is Todd Hicks. I am your retirement coach. And I have a special guest in the studio this morning, Jeff Manry. And if you'd like to give us a shout this morning, you're welcome to do so. 404-367-WGST. Again, that's 404-367-9478. Jeff, just as we were leaving before the break, we were talking about if you've got portfolios A, B, and C, and we've averaged the same rate of return in those portfolios, but we have different sequences of pulling money out for income, can that change or alter the end result of that return?
Absolutely. And I label this the invisible reality of investing.
I like that.
Okay, this is something that is not new. Okay, we may not be aware of it, but it's been like this in the past. It's like this in the future. It's going to be like it's like that in every moment. Doesn't matter what you invest in. Okay, there's one investment rate of return, and only one, that I know of that everybody on the street could tell you how it works. Okay, what particular investment vehicle is that, Todd?
Now, if I fail this one, they're going to take me off the air. I think it's a CD.
You got it.
All right.
Okay, I believe that 98% of the investing public, when it comes to investment rate of return and how it truly works, that is the extent of most people's knowledge. Now, I'm not condemning or saying whatever,
right,
but we have not had the information out there provided by our industry, because guess whose responsibility it is foremost to do that?
Our industry.
It's us.
Yes.
Okay, and it's very obscure. You can't talk about it. You have to illustrate it, okay? And let me give you a quick example of this. Let's say that you had 3 people invest in the same portfolio on day one.
Mm-hmm.
And that portfolio averaged 10% over 10 years. But the thing about averages is they're created by different returns at different times. Like, you have your sequence of return that creates the average. Mm-hmm. Is what's critical. Then let's say that these 3 people had 3 different cash flow patterns, i.e. putting deposits into that investment portfolio and extracting deposits out of that portfolio. And these 3 people had different amounts coming in at different times, pulling different amounts over different times. In other words, they were acting like an individual.
Okay.
Okay? So you got an individual person interacting with a portfolio that averaged 10 with unequal sequences. Or of annual returns. Well, guess what happens? At the end, you can use that same portfolio for 3 different clients, and their people rate of return, they're all different. So every investor is faced with 3 moving parts when it comes to investing and creating income flow and cash flow. First one is deposits and withdrawals.
Okay.
All right. That is. Who controls that part of the equation?
The client does.
Absolutely. Okay? But they don't know how important that part of it is. Okay, so the client controls that part.
Okay.
The next factor, which is one of the moving parts, is asset allocation, or simply, what do you invest in? Okay, now who controls that?
Well, it should be the advisor.
The advisor with mutual...
along with the client.
Along with the client, okay? Now, there's one critical moving part to this whole equation, and it applies to everyone who invests money, and that is sequence of return. Notice I didn't say average.
Mm-hmm.
Because average tells us very little. As a matter of fact, I've heard this, and I'm sure many people have heard this, you can drown in a lake with an average depth of 3 feet.
Yep.
Okay?
Absolutely.
But at the end of 10 years, these people will look at each other and go, how did you do? And they will be nowhere near each other.
Give us an example.
Okay. So if I'm looking at a particular portfolio that averaged 10%, and I had one of these clients put $100,000 in at the beginning of the 10 years, never touched it.
Okay.
Okay. Another client came in, and they were doing what the industry, everybody's heard of this, dollar cost averages. You do it in your 401k plan. You put regular amounts in at regular intervals.
Okay.
Okay, so if you take that person, and let's say this person put $10,000 a year in every year for 10 years.
Okay.
All right, then you have another investor who is walking out the door, they're retiring, and let's say that they are walking out with $100,000 from either a 401k plan, lump sum pension, or whatever, and they walk in and say, well, I'm not going to put any more money in. I'm going to start taking money out.
Okay.
Okay, so there's 3 different human beings there with 3 different cash flow behaviors that they're going to associate, okay, and inject into that portfolio that I'm talking about.
So the end result you're going to give us here, each one of those portfolios had the same average rate of return.
Well, let's just say that they invested in the very same portfolio that had the 10% average.
Okay, cool.
Okay? And let's say you knew it in advance it was going to average 10. Well, problem is, at the end of 10 years, you pull the statements out on these people. The guy, the person that put in the $100,000 and never touched it. Okay, that's going to be his compounded rate of return.
And what was that?
It's called, we'd have to use exact sequence of returns examples,
okay,
which I can't very well do over the radio because there's no visual here.
That's true.
But we have drastic different experiences, rate of return experiences, given the same portfolio with 3 different human beings over the same 10-year period that inject 3 different cash flow patterns onto that portfolio. Okay? This is, and as hard to grasp as this is talking about it, that's why I built this system, because you got to see it to believe it. You can't just talk about it or scratch it on the back of a cocktail napkin.
I've actually been in the business as a financial advisor and in the financial services for 26 years, and I've looked at an awful lot of software programs that I want to use with my clients, of course, and they're all very powerful planning tools, but what I find most often is that most of these software programs have been created by a computer guru, somebody that really doesn't understand the financial end of it like you and I do. And that's what I think is so powerful about your program, the BetaVest, in that it was created by a financial advisor. And if I'm not mistaken, Jeff, you actually created that software because you couldn't go out there and find the tool that you really needed in your own practice. Isn't that correct?
Absolutely. I've always tried creative ways of expressing myself. But I will tell you that a lot of these calculators that you go on to the various websites with, and they're very simplified. They say how much money do you have today, when do you want to retire, how much are you putting in, and then there's this variable, and this variable is dangerous. It says, now what average rate of return do you want to assume that you're going to earn from now and forever? Put that static rate of return in there, which never happens, by the way, and your whole plan is headed off into la-la land.
Very important stuff. When it comes to retirement income planning, you just can't take the law of averages and hope that it works out for you. So we're going to come back and talk more about that. You are listening to the Retirement Coach Show. This is Todd Hicks. I am the Retirement Coach, and we're on 640 WGST. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
Now, more of the Retirement Coach on 640 WGST Atlanta Talk Radio.
The Retirement Coach tells it like it is. You're listening to the Retirement Coach Show. This is Todd Hicks. I am your coach, and it's a pleasure to be here. 640 WGST. If you'd like to call in, talk to us, feel free to do so. 404-367-WGST, 404-367-9478. Again, this morning, I do have special guest in the studio with me, Mr. Jeff Manry, and he is the developer of a program to help retirees with their income planning. It's actually a program developed to help advisors help clients. And Jeff, you've actually been quoted as saying, reality can be defined in 3 categories: cash flow, asset allocation, and sequence of returns. As the saying goes, in these matters, the only certainty is that nothing is certain. But if we can understand uncertainty, we and our clients can plan for it. That's pretty powerful. What do you mean by that?
Well, let's just say that it's kind of stolen from other different aspects of our lives. I find it incredible that somebody with a health issue could go to a doctor. And let's say that this health issue is fairly serious.
Okay.
And left untreated, an unpopular event may occur. We know what we're talking about here. Okay. And the doctor takes a look at the situation. He makes a diagnosis, and he looks at the patient, and he tells him what the situation is. And he said, left untreated, this could be terminal. Now, one thing I want to relate to here is if we all live long enough, and not to be pessimistic here, but this is a fact, if we all live long enough and we don't have the ability to work and earn money, then there is a risk of running out of money. Okay, so I call that, a financial terminal situation. Okay, now when
it's kind of like dying before running out of breath.
Yeah,
isn't it?
Absolutely. Okay, and so when you go to the doctor, or if maybe you've even had this experience, and they tell you, listen, there's a situation here, and you, left untreated, it doesn't look good. Well, what's the first thing you would ask that doctor? What would you ask that doctor? I would say, well, Doc, what are my odds?
What are my chances?
What are my chances? Well, if we do this, it's this. If we do that, it's this. Okay? What are those chances or those probabilities or that you got a 55% chance if we use this protocol? Where do they come from? Historical results of looking at people being treated in that particular way, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So when we deal with uncertainty, we have to treat it with understanding odds and probability.
Okay.
We do it in every other things in our life. We turn it on television. Guess what the weatherman says? What's the odds it's going to rain today? See, we're willing to take odds in every other aspect of our life, but when it comes to our money, we want 100% shored up probability that we are going to make it without any pain, okay, without any calamity occurring, and we want somebody out there to give us that 100% probability.
And when you go through economic times like we're currently going through, it sure diminishes those probabilities, doesn't it?
Absolutely, but it's not anything out of the ordinary.
Because we've actually been through, 22 recessions or something like that since the Great Depression?
Right. This is the third worst market retreatment, call it breakdown, what have you, since the Depression. Okay, it's happened before, and it's happening now. Chances are it's going to happen again. It's just spread out.
That's why we're here each and every week, the Retirement Coach Show, talking about your money, talking about your income, and we're going to take a short break. But you are here on 640 WGST. And we'll be back in just a few minutes. 404-367 WGST. Welcome back to the Retirement Coach Show. This is Todd Hicks. I am your retirement coach. And we are here at 640 WGST. And wrapping up the show this week. And we're talking with Jeff Manry from BetaVest. It's a software program developed for financial advisors to help clients deal with the uncertainty for their income planning. And Jeff, right during the break, we were actually talking about investing for income. What's your spin on that?
Well, it is a spin. Matter of fact, it may be twisted. But when we talk about income planning, first thing that pops into mind, okay, bonds, CDs, dividend-paying stocks, and what have you. Okay, that's not really what I mean. Okay, when a client comes in the door, a lot of times they have two things on their mind. Especially at retirement age. They've got a 401k balance, an IRA balance, whatever it is, and they'll come in and say, look, I just have this thrust upon me now, and what was sort of not in the front of my attention, that required my attention, is now dead on and requiring my attention, and I'm on my own. Okay? So I need help investing this money. See, that's what people think they're looking for is just investment help, and to help people get kind of squared away on what they're really looking for. Somebody, it comes up. Well, I'm retiring. I need help. Somebody help me invest this money, and there's a one-word question. That's all I have to ask. It's why, and they look at me like I'm crazy. What do you mean why?
Oh, you get those looks too, huh?
Oh yeah, we get. Yeah. Okay, and I say why, and they sit. And they look at me again. I said, why do you want to invest this money? And they go, because it's all we got. It's all we have. We're going to have to live off this money. And I'll say, oh, what does it take for you to live off of? In other words, what does it take you to pay your bills when they become due and keep up a reasonable lifestyle? And they look at it and they say, income. And I'll say, oh, so you want to have a conversation about income planning as opposed to just investments. Is that correct?
There is a difference.
There is a difference, okay? Because hear this, Todd, and you can use this. Every person, and every listener out there, I want you to think about why you're saving money in your 401k, IRAs, and all that. And I believe for 98% of the population, it's for this very one reason. Okay? It's either to generate income now or income later. That is the impetus of why we invest money.
Absolutely.
That's it, period. Why save up money if you didn't need to pull and create income later? So we got to start thinking in terms of income planning instead of just sheer investment management.
It's important stuff. It's very, very interesting, and it's the other thing that that we've talked about before, and we're going to get ready to close out here. But the thing we've talked about is a lot of folks look at their 401k balance or whatever they roll over at the time of retirement is this is my principal balance, and I want to preserve that principal. But in all reality, that balance is going to be depleted over their entire lifetime. Hopefully, not before they take their final breath.
That's correct. Think of it as an Army canteen. You pour the water in it so you can do what?
Take it out.
Take it out when you need it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's always my pleasure to be here with you each and every week, and I do thank Jeff Manry for being here with us this morning on the Retirement Coach Show here on 640 WGST.
Securities offered through Securities America, Inc., member FINRA, SIPC, and advisory services offered through Securities America Advisors. Todd Hicks, representative. Allegiance Retirement Solutions and Securities America are separate entities.
The opinions, viewpoints, and promises made during the preceding program are not those of WGST, its staff, management, or parent company, Clear Channel Communications, Inc.